Welcome to Holme. I'm here today with Morgan, who's going to be helping me plant a tree, not just any old tree. We're going to be planting a bare root or root ball tree. We'll look at both of them, and a native tree called birch, which we've got growing in our tree nursery at the top, and then we're going to transplant it into this natural area we've got in the gardens here at Holme. So we're going to go and get the tree from the tree nursery now, and I've got Morgan pushing the wheelbarrow because I'm the brains and he's the brawn. So we've arrived at the tree nursery now, and we've selected out our tree, this birch here. It's currently about 10 foot tall. It's about 3 years old, growing quickly, and we're going to dig it up, try and preserve as much of the soil around it as possible, and then move it to the new site, and then dig it in at the new site and plant it, and it will require a stake as well. Yeah.
Is there a correct way to
we're going to do about 12 to 18 inches out from the trunk. Okay, so it's got to be small enough to move, but as much root as possible as we go. Trunk as a marker, as a centerpiece of the circle. Just keep cutting around it. If you come across a root, try and jump on it and break through it like that. Yes, but when you hit resistance in the soil, it'll probably be a root. There's one. There we go. So we should have cut all the lateral main roots as we've gone round. So now we've got to get in underneath it and take the bottom roots out. So Morgan, if you put a bit of pressure on that, pull it towards you as I loosen it here. Okay, come around the other side, pull it the other way. That's it. So you can see all the roots that are there now. We've kept most of it all as one whole. Ideally, we're going to move it with as much soil as possible and cause as little disturbance to the roots as possible. So the next thing we're going to do is just put a bag underneath it, and then we can lift it on that bag and into the wheelbarrow. Get it right to the end. That's it. Good. Tools back in. Whilst we're down here, Morgan, we'll get the smaller shrubs, then we can do a bare root one as well. So we've got some hazel over here. So the same thing as the root ball tree, which is going to dig round about 6 to 8 inches out, probably a bit tighter on this shrub. We don't need to go quite so far out on this one. So just severing through the main runner roots. There's a bit of bramble in there, Morgan, so just watch yourself when you pull that out. Okay, this time, so it's going to be bare root. So let's get the bramble out of the way. Shredding fingers on that. And you can see now, this time we're just going to... Okay, there was a bit of bindweed in there. We don't want that. And just check it through. In fact, because we've got bindweed in there, I'm going to actually shake it down to a bare root. So the two types that we've got there, the one we dug out a minute ago was a root ball, because we kept the ball of the root all together, and this one now is what we would describe as a bare root plant. So it's come out of the ground, and you can see the roots are now bare, and we want to get that to the new planting hole as quickly as possible so the roots don't dry out. So we're going to be planting into this bank of soil here, and it was stored for a period, and when you've had stored topsoil it can go a little bit sour, although that was 3 years ago now, and it's been respread and it's got plenty of herb growth growing on it, so it would have recovered by now. Now the only thing is that it won't have done is because we've got rid of associations with trees and shrubs, it would have naturally had a mycorrhizal association originally. That's when you've had something down under grass for a long time. Different types of fungi live with grass, other types of fungi live with trees and shrubs. So the beneficial ones that we want, the mycorrhizal ones for trees and shrubs, won't be existing in here anymore. So our first job is to take the grass competition away from around here, and you can see the grass is pretty long. And grass also exudes a compound, so as rainwater passes through the root zone, the grass roots exude a compound which inhibits the rooting of trees and shrubs. So what we want to do is keep a 3-foot clear circle around here for the first couple of seasons while the plant gets a hold in here. In the longer term, when these trees and shrubs grow up, they will start to shade this area, they will start to pull moisture out of the soil and make it more difficult for the grass to grow so strongly here, and it will fight its own corner. But initially we need to give it a helping hand by getting rid of some of the grass. So that's our first job, is to create a 3-foot circle here of chopping out the grass. Right, Morgan, your bit.
Mm-hmm. So how are we going to chop through the grass?
We are going to use the spade very accurately, down like that.
Yep.
Okay, and then just lift it backwards slightly. You just imagine your tree is in the middle. We're going to form a circle around that. So we might need to be able to peel it away, or we may have to chop it out with the, but here it comes. So we need to get the roots. You can see the roots of the grass coming away with it there. So we've got a bit of area there. I'm now just going to chop through a bit. Well done. Right, that soil's useful. Shake that off. You can see on this grass here how it absolutely dominates an area when an area's got high fertility. This grass is only 3 years old. It's Yorkshire fog, and it's a type of grass called Yorkshire fog. And you can see the thickness here. Now there's no way, that's all what we call thatch. So it's dead grass stems. There's the live stuff at the top. And that actually acts like a bit of thatch on the surface, inhibits rainwater going through that area, and also it completely dominates the soil surface, stopping native flowers getting a hold in there. So this area where it's got high nutrition, we're growing trees here because it's going to be really difficult to create a really good high quality wildflower meadow, because the grasses will just grow strongly and they'll swamp out any wildflowers. So trees are better here. Right, there's our circle. We're right the way across there. That can all go back, that's fine. Good, got a nice area here now. Soil is nice and easy here. We're on sandy soil here. And this was all the topsoil that came off the fruit farm a few years ago. So you can see it's very nice and easy. So we're just going to dig a hole out that's big enough to get the birch tree back in here.
And how deep are we digging this?
Deep enough that we don't need to change the height, adjust the height of the old, the existing soil level on the tree. We can go a bit on this side as well. So good question though. Let's go and have a look in the wheelbarrow and we can look at the soil watermark. So when you're transplanting something, if you want to just come in a little bit closer and get rid of the vegetation on the surface. You can see there is the soil, the height that it was planted at in the original ground. Now, to hold the grass back a bit, we're going to put a mulch of wood chip on the top of this, and what we don't want to do is mound the wood chip up around the stem, because that can cause a rot to get in at this point here. So we're actually going to plant very slightly out of the ground, so that when we bring the mulch in, the mulch comes just up to the original height, but it does its job of suppressing the grass around it. Okay, so now we need to lift that carefully over there and just measure up to see we're at the right height. So I need you on there. So it looks, put it down to the next to the hole for a minute. Okay, so I can see already that we're not big enough. It's wider than it is. The root ball here is wider than we've dug, so we need to dig more out. So if you dig some out that way, probably all right. Depth wise, it's probably not far off. If we keep just putting it in and out of the hole, we'll probably break the root ball up. So what we want to do is just going to measure, so from one side of the roots to the other is actually exactly the length of the silver. So if we put that across the hole now, looks like we're about right. Okay, so final thing is to use mycorrhizal compost to get in here as well. And I think we might be, looking at the depth wise, we might have gone almost too far. Yeah, we might need to put a little bit of soil back in there, particularly around the edges, because you can see the shape of it's deeper in the middle. So we'll just fill the edges in slightly. And we should be about right there then. So we're going to now put some mycorrhizal fungi. So why are we putting the mycorrhizal fungi? As I said, because it's died, the grass would have died out whilst it's been under grass here. There's probably already association of mycorrhizal with the existing birch, so it will have had some inoculation come in from where it's been growing already, and more so when you've got the root balls and the soil still attached to it. On the other plant where we picked up and made it a bare root plant, we're definitely going to use mycorrhizal on there as well. So we'll put a little sprinkling in here first, then put the plant in, and then because it's lost quite a bit of its root, we'll need to, and we're in an exposed area, we're going to need to put a stake in as well.
So Simon, how much of this are we going to use?
Well, Morgan, I think that is, this, if you look at the roots there, it's about the equivalent of 20 litres to 20 litres to 30 litres of compost. So if you read the back of the packet, it should give you a pot size of 10, 12 litre.
So to 25 litres, the number of 10mm scoops is 12.
Okay. In this situation, I'm going to use 6 because we've come from a good nursery where the plant was growing strongly, and it will already have some inoculation in there as well. So we're only going to use 6 in this instance. And you're going to spread it around. So that's it. So in former times and in other methods of tree planting, people will use bone meal. Bone meal is a fertilizer, and it's high in phosphate, so it can help produce roots. But this actually, what this mycorrhizal fungi does, it actually links onto the roots. So where there's injury to roots there, it'll go in and block those sites, and as it's a beneficial fungi, it won't cause any problems. It'll grow round there, and it's like getting into cuts and lesions on your hand. It'll block all the entry points from detrimental fungi from getting in, and once it's linked onto there, it'll then grow off through the soil, and in a bit of soil about that size, they reckon there's actually up to 10 kilometres of fungal strand in there. So it's all pervasive within the soil. It's picking up micronutrients, nutrients and water and bringing it back to the plant. But the fungi itself can't produce sugars and high complex organic compounds on its own, so it needs the sugars that's produced by the tree. So the plant or the shrub and the tree and the plant give that back to the fungi. So it's a beneficial relationship between the plant and the fungi called a symbiosis or a symbiotic relationship, and they're both going to do better for the association with each other. Okay, so we're just going to move it a little bit closer, a bit further. That's it. And we can go into the hole it's not that heavy that we can't move it. I'll lift it up if Morgan then takes the bag out. That's it. And remember, we said we wanted it just a little bit proud. Now you'll notice underneath here, Morgan, there are voids, because remember the shape of the root ball underneath. So rather than try and force stuff in from the top, what we're going to do now is going to go round the edge of the hole, break the soil down and push it in underneath. I will explain right here. So we're just going to go along the edge of the hole where we haven't dug it, and then we can just push that in with our boots underneath, holding the tree upright as we go round. Nothing like the heel of your size 10s to compress the soil.
Or your 9.5s.
Or your 9.5s. Actually your 13s in my case, and 9.5s in yours. There we go. Right, we're getting there now. Okay, that's probably enough, because we've got to have room for the mulch to go on the surface now. Now remember what I said about here, we don't want to adjust the soil level there, so any of the soil that we've just pulled over there, need to just bring that back down to the level it was growing in the other place. Just pull out that creeping buttercup there. Right, we're pretty much there. We're just going to create a little dip on the edge to get the mulch to bite in. And we can mulch in a minute, but before that we're just going to put a stake in. And it's actually it feels quite secure, but if you actually put the same pressure here that the wind would be putting on it, you'll see it starting to lift and crack the soil there. So it would, in a sheltered situation, it would never get that much pressure on it. And it's just, the stake is there just to secure it until the new roots have formed out into the soil around and holding it in place. So stake next. So Morgan, when a new tree goes in, obviously we've got to try and protect it from wind damage and wind rock. So you can see I'm just doing, this is what would happen in a windy situation, and you can see now that it's starting to move the soil up and down there. And it's just coming up towards evening, sun's setting over in the southwest at this time of year, south is over there, southwest is where our prevailing wind comes from. So most of our weather will come from that direction. So most of the pressure on the tree will be that way. Some people put a stake straight down and get the plant to pull away from that stake, but actually you'll get more strength if you put it in on the other side. So we're going to go in at an angle through there, and then we're going to tie tie it off in that situation, in that point there, and then when it goes like that, it's pushing it into the stake, and it'll work better. So the stake, you'll notice we put it away, so the root ball came to there, and we've gone just outside the root ball, so it's missing the root ball, and that's so we're not damaging any more of the roots than we have done already. So I'm just going to hold it back while Morgan knocks it in. Nice soft soil, not so easy if you're on chalk.
And how far down are we going with this?
As far as you can get it, really. The further it is in, the stronger it is. But if it stops moving and you're in risk of breaking the stake with your hitting, which it might, no, you're all right at the moment, keep going a bit further, still moving.
Say about here is where I think
yeah, it's certainly in strong enough. There's no reason for it to go any further than that. So now we need to tie it, and we've got this tree tie here, and when you'll notice when they come in, they come with this buckle, and that buckle's important. So we're going to undo it for a minute here, and there should be one side normally has writing on it, this one doesn't actually. So what we're going to do is we want it to end up so the buckle's on the outside, so when it comes back through, when we pull it up tight, we can pull on that buckle. Okay, so we want to go through that way. So that goes on first. Then we're going to go around the back of the tree, and then we're going to go around the stake. So we need to get it there. We're going to put the tree in here, and then come back through and tighten it off around the post. So round the tree first, back through the buckle, now we want it reasonably tight, and if I offer it up, I think I've got that in the wrong position at the moment, but I'll just show you just to offer it up. Okay, so if I put it there, it's not going to be far off. When we tie it up, it's actually going to be on the back of the stake, so you may have to adjust it slightly. I will adjust it. I'll push a little bit more back through and then pull a bit more through this way so that we can get the buckle there. It's in a good position, and then we're going to go through that hole there, and now we can pull it really nice and tight. And because we've got that lug now on the outside, when we pull on it, it will lock that up against the stem there, which will give us time to push that back through without losing any tension. And there we go. Okay, now if we try and rock the tree, do you want to be the wind, Morgan? Okay, so you can see now the soil isn't moving at the bottom because the stake has taken the tension now. So the last thing we'll need to do now is, because we don't want any rubbing going on here, it's nice and clear and get my hand through between that. So there isn't any rubbing going on at the moment, but we don't want that to rub on these branches here. So we'll just cut that excess off with a saw and a little bit later on. But ostensibly it's now staked, it's now planted, and we just need to put some mulch down. Right, Morgan, last bit now. All you need to do now is put that mulch down about 3 to 4 inches thick around the plant there. So you can pour it out and just spread it around. And we're putting this on to certainly stop any annuals from germinating. It won't stop perennial grasses coming back in from the edge, but it will slow them down. And it'll also, you remember that layer of thatch that was on the soil beforehand? If we need to come in and water this tree during the first summer, the water will go in a lot better through the bark than it would do through the grass. So that's why we're putting it on. The other reason that we use bark around the new plants is because the mycorrhizal fungi that we put on there feed on the bark. So they'll go and feed on that wood, start to break it down, and remember that connection they've got with the root system of the tree. They will then bring the nutrients that they're pulling out of that bark and give it to the tree, and we'll get a nice quick establishment of the tree. Now, Morgan, just one thing you do, that's probably enough, but what you need to do now is just clear a little air gap around the neck of the plant, back down to the original soil level, because what we don't want is the bark lying up against the trunk, a bit on my side as well. That's it. Okay, so now air move, that'll keep that area of the trunk dry. A number of times I've seen plants die because people have mulched it too high, and then the damp bark causes a rot to get in at the neck of the plant, and as all the conducting tissue, all the sap coming up from the roots has to pass through that crown of the plant there, it'll kill the plant for sure. So that's why we keep it nice and open. Right, I think we're done. All we need to do is cut that off, and I'll bring my pruning saw back down later and do that later. Right, Morgan, I think we're pretty much done here. Have you got any questions?
Well, I do actually have one. I learned recently how to plant a container pot, and I was just wondering what the biggest differences were between the two.
Okay, so it's really in the production which will cause the difference. So you saw with this one, we went and lifted it from the ground where the roots were growing freely out into the soil around, and we had to cut through them. Don't worry too much about cutting them. It's like when you cut yourself, what happens, the blood comes out initially, and then a scab forms, and the tissue starts to regrow. So when you injure the roots, you're actually inducing new growth in there. So that's absolutely fine. The danger potentially with a container grown plant is that if it's been in that container too long, the roots go out, hit the edge of the pot, and then they've got nowhere to go. So they start to spiral around the edge. Did you see that on any of the pots that you had already, or was it the right stage?
No, it was at the right stage, so there weren't any spiralling around.
So when you buy a plant, it's always best to just try and knock it out of the pot, or ask the salesperson just to knock it out of the pot so you can examine the roots. If the roots are coming up and you can't really see any spiralling, what will happen is they'll all start to go around the pot the same way, and that can cause a problem. If it's only a little bit, you can tease the roots out and then they'll start growing out again into the right positions. But I did have one just a couple of months ago that I pulled out, and it was thick roots, as thick as that had gone, and they were just going round and round and round, and the plant had failed after 2 years. So you may not get an instant failure, but you will in due course. So root spiralling is not great. So bare root plants, you never get a problem with that. The biggest problem you likely to get with a bare root plant is that you can take off too much root, and it can't support all the growth up the top when it comes to put a demand on the system when it needs water from the ground. Right, that's the tree finished, Morgan. Have you any questions on that?
I believe that's it, Simon.
Okay, what we're going to do now then is you do the bare root run, which was the hazel that we pulled up from the nursery, dug up from the nursery, and now we're going to do that and look at the difference between the bare root and the root ball. We're creating a circle to get rid of the grass roots like we did with the bare root tree. Okay, so now we need to pull the grass off. Shake the soil out of it. A nice bit of couch grass. Glad this isn't the garden. Otherwise we'd do something about it, but in this natural environment it's fine. So you just need to dig that out. Oh, and bindweed as well, just to complete the set. Remember, there wasn't much on that. You won't need to go very deep, actually. That, you want it in the middle of the hole, so it's going to go in there. Right, we need to go and get the plant now. After you, youngster.
The brawl, as you call me.
Don't forget the mycorrhizal fungi. Right, Morgan, this time it's about equivalent of about a 3 litre plant. So
okay.
How many doses on the back of the packet?
So it's got between 2 and 5. So for 2, it's 2. For 5, it's 4. So 3
would be good. So first, just offer it up to the hole just to check that it's going to be the right size. So we want the plant in the middle of that space, and the roots, see that long root going out there? It's still well within the bounds of the hole, so that's absolutely fine. That's possibly a little bit deep at the moment, so we just put a little bit of soil back in underneath there. We haven't got the great big root ball that we have with the birch tree, just this little one here. So that looks fine to me. Just a little bit of mycorrhizal around it. Excellent. Right, there we go. And we want that as in close contact with the roots as possible. So just push that root into there. Right, just fill the soil back around it. Now this is nice and easy because it's only a small plant, so we're just going to pull that in with our hands. If you're on a heavier clay soil, this might be a little bit more difficult. This is a light sandy soil. Your clay soil will hold on to the moisture much better than our soil, but it is more difficult to work with. As you see, this is crumbing up nicely, nice and easy in the hands, which makes it workable all year round, but with the clay it's a little bit more difficult. But if you have got heavy clay, you will just have to, that's the point that I would actually introduce some organic matter and try and work the organic matter in, which would be eco tree and shrub planting compost or eco mixed compost, which will both just coat the broken down clods of clay with a layer of organic compost, and that will stop it clagging back together in the future. So you can just work it over and over again. Every time it breaks down, it's a bit like putting flour and dough. It'll get it drier and drier, and then it should get a more crumb structure, which is easier to work with. But you just have to work a bit harder on that clay soil. However, your clay soil will actually pay dividends in the long run, because there'll be moisture there all through the summer, whereas here stops raining and 2 weeks later the plants run out of water, so it stops growing, just goes into a sort of dormancy in the summertime. So both soils have their good points, both soils have their negative points. Right, well I think we're there, Morgan, on that. Just finish that bit off around there. Remember that there, you can just see the top root there, that's where it was. Probably just go a little bit more soil over the top there. Right, now get your size 9.5 in and start pressing the soil down around it. Possibly get a bit more on that far side. Oh, got your trainers dirty.
They were white.
There's your best gardening shoes.
Afraid so.
Right. Now, the trick is to know whether you've got a bare root plant in the ground firmly enough is to hold the very tip bud there on one of the stems and pull it. And if the plant comes out of the ground before it snaps, then you haven't got the plant in firmly enough. So that's snapped, so it's in the ground firm enough. So as this is only a little short plant here, it doesn't require a stake. If you're planting in an area that you've got deer in, you will need to protect that from deer, probably a little fence around it whilst it gets established for the first 3 years, because deer in an area, they'll browse up to that high off the ground, so it would just take all the foliage off that in no time at all. Right, mulch.
How high is this one coming up?
Same, 3 inches.
3 inches.
You can pour it out. There, that's it. So when I used to do forestry work, we would be planting plants about this. They wouldn't have their leaves on, they'd have gone into dormancy, so it'd be sort of November through till March time, and we would be getting about 300 of those in a day. Yeah, 300 to 350 of those in a day, but of course we weren't paying the same attention to detail that we have on here. So here we're expecting 100% or 99% success rate on what we plant. Out in the forest you would expect a 75-80% success rate. If the plant's small enough, it should survive, but yeah, this is quite a nice easy plant to put in. So we've had great fun today, and we've finished planting our hazel shrub here, which was bare root, and our birch tree root balled over there, and in due course these will form a lovely habitat for wild animals such as caterpillars and moths, and birds that like feeding on the caterpillars. So nesting sites, lots of reasons for planting good native shrubs here. But same in the garden, you can transplant ornamental plants at this time of year. This time of year being November, we've actually got a very late autumn at the moment, and this hazel hasn't even started to change colour yet, and it's in full leaf. But normally by now the leaves would have dropped, and when the leaves are dropped, that's when the plant appears to be dormant. But actually, because the soil temperature is really nice and warm at this time of year, having gone through the summer, the air temperature drops quicker than the soil temperature, and that differential actually encourages the plant to do that. It takes back in nutrients through the leaves and pushes out new growth underground. So it's a great time to transplant stuff anytime up till Christmas. But you can still carry on transplanting in the new year and into February and occasionally into March, but by then you're getting a bit close to the end of the dormant period coming up. Well, there we are, Morgan. I think we've learned a bit today, and you've learned a bit, and there we go.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Simon. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and also leave a comment if you want to. We want to hear what you think. Thank you. The video is going to be featuring Morgan.
All right.